because we have this whole maggot family of radvertisers, and Shelby Elias from financewithshelby.com is with us. And now you aren't still training with Greg, because I know you were for a while.
Yeah, I was, but I kind of fell off the wagon.
And you haven't gotten back on yet?
But yeah, he was my trainer for like 2 years. He did a great job.
Yeah,
He's awesome.
In fact, I met Greg through you,
Yeah.
telling Greg how great the show is, and now he's a regular guest as well. So
Yeah.
thanks for that. First things first, Shelby, we have a rule around here. Once we know who's in the Super Bowl, you got to pick a side. Even if your team's not in it, you got to root for one. So you got the Bengals and you got the Rams. Who are you rooting? I don't care who you think's going to win. Who you rooting for?
I'm rooting for the Bengals.
Well,
They haven't even made the playoffs in like 30 years. Like there's a lot of people. I saw a lot of the videos online that were showing people's reaction. I saw these like elderly couples that were just bursting out in tears over the fact that they made the playoffs, let alone if they win the Super Bowl. So you got to root for the Bengals.
And if you haven't paid attention to Joe Burrow, their quarterback, what a quality kid he is. And who likes the Rams?
Yeah, I'm also Team Bengals because their quarterback is super hot.
Oh, you got to see him finally. Okay.
Yeah, he's cute.
The Bengals.
We got a couple of emails here, rad@radradio.com. First one's from Araceli.
Hey, Araceli.
Says, I had a call with Joe last week from Shelby's office and asked about the potential of building a remodel on my property and how to best finance that. He gave me great suggestions, and I really appreciate how much I learned in just a 20-minute phone call. Thanks, Shelby, for hiring knowledgeable people that can offer great customer service. I'll definitely refer my network to Shelby's team.
I love
Nice.
Randy says, I just closed with Shelby, the easiest process I ever went through for a refi. I highly recommend it again. Thanks, Shelby.
Yay.
So last time you were here, I realized this as we were talking, and sometimes what happens is we talk past people, and we start talking about all these things that you're doing without like starting with the basics of various things that they can do. So a couple emails that I saved that came in when people knew we were coming here. Chris wrote in and said, my wife and I have around $120,000 in equity. If we refinance, would we get any money out of that to pay off any of our other loans we have, such as car loans or credit cards? I mean, that's literally that's the answer is, that's what it is.
It is, but I think what he's alluding to is how much of that can I access? So the way that you figure that out is you take the value of your house. Okay, so let's say it's $100,000. Okay, if it's $100,000 value, you could take up to 80. So that would leave you with 80,000 as your max loan amount. If you already have a loan amount of 50, then you can access 30,000 of cash. That's how you calculate that.
Kelly wrote in and said, my husband and I definitely need to do a cash out. Will we have to pay for an appraisal up front, and how much does that cost?
So you're supposed to cover the cost of an appraisal, because if your loan falls through, then, we're stuck with the tab, okay? But in some cases, if you request that from us and you say, hey, can you guys cover that appraisal up front? We can cover it, and then we can charge it back through your loan. So it doesn't always have to be out of pocket.
Phone number is 888-989-9811. One more before we get into some topics here, Shelby. A lot of people write, I don't know if we've ever hit on this. Do you recommend 30 or 15-year loans?
Well, right now, the way that interest rates are, they're still relatively so low that I would recommend going into a 30-year loan. Ask me to calculate however much that you want to pay your loan off. If it's 10 years, 15, 17, 18, I could tell you what payment to make. But then you always have the ability to fall back on the 30-year. So I would recommend going with, a 30-year fixed and just accelerating the payments. It's not a good enough interest rate break to sign up and be strapped to the 15-year.
All right, so let's talk about the variety of things. And when we start talking about interest rates and rising rates and people's eyes start to glaze over, home values have gone through the roof. There's a lot of people that are already right now thinking, I need to, or I want to sell my house in 6 months or in 2 years for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Jobs, kids, careers, they hate where they're living, that kind of thing. Let's say you got somebody who wants to sell their home in 6 months to 2 years from right now.
Yeah.
What would you tell them in relation to where the market is, the rates, and they have to have a ton of equity as well?
Yep. One of the things that I always recommend is, look, if you're thinking about selling your house in 6 months or a year, everybody wants to prep their house to go on the market, but they don't do it the right way. Usually what they do is they do a little bit of landscaping in the front to increase their curb appeal. and then they do some freshening up on the inside to get it ready to list. What I would recommend is if you have that, time to wait, call me to analyze your equity position, and let's look at what we can do to renovate the house. So you do a cash out refi, access your cash now, okay? Then you're going to redeploy that cash back into your own house. And then, like we said before, the average return on investment on a remodel in general is 70%. So why not flip your own house? Like, it doesn't cost you anything.
So they're sitting there thinking, but Shelby, when I sell, if the market stays the same, we're going to make a $200,000 profit. You're saying take out maybe 150 of that, reinvest it in your house, and you're going to make a larger profit because of the improvements that you make on the house.
Yes. Yep.
But what about, I can't tell you how many, after you were here last time, we touched on this a little bit. We got so many emails, and we already got a bunch when you were coming back. People are obsessed with their monthly payment going up.
Yeah.
And how much is it going to go up?
Yep. So let me give you a little example on that. I just did one of these. So if you take a loan amount, say you have a loan amount right now of $350,000 and your interest rate is 3%, and you want to take out $100,000 of your equity. So now your new loan amount's going to be $450,000, and your rate's going to go from 3% APR to a 4.125 APR. Most people would stop right there. They'd say, hey, that's over a full point. I am not doing that. But it's going to give you $100,000 of cash. The difference in your payment at that point is only going to be about $600 to $650 a month difference. So what I'm saying is that's going to give you $100,000. I mean, if you could pay off your credit cards or whatever and easily make up that $650, but it gives you $100,000 of cash. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to sell your house in 6, 8, 10 months, a year, whenever, 2 years, take that cash out now. Your payment is going to go up $600 or so dollars. So, that's going to stink, but it's short term. You're going to reinvest that $100,000, and based on the statistics, the average return on investment 70%. So you're going to invest $100 and you're going to make an extra $70. So it makes perfect sense. I mean, looking at $600 per month, that's only going to equate to maybe $5,000.
So you have two different answers to the sticker shock. Because when you said $600 a month, some people went, "What is this guy? I don't have $600." So your two answers are one, well, you might not have $600 a month because you've got all these other debts that you're going to pay down.
Correct.
And you're going to at least break even. Plus, you don't have the debt any longer. Or two, if you're looking to sell within the next 6 months to 2 years from now, you've got to look at the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have to pay $600 a month, but this is all going to lead to that much larger profit when you sell the house.
Well, and what's the debt on? I mean, what's the interest on your debt?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's much higher than your new payment with the house.
Yeah,
and that money frees up.
Absolutely.
You're exactly right.
We got this email from Cindy, which is a similar idea of, gosh, should I refi, should I buy? But a little different story. She says, I've been thinking about either refinancing my house or buying a new house. I owe about $100,000 on my house. It's worth $525,000. Does it make sense to refinance it for another 20 or 30 years to take the equity out when I will be retiring in the next 6 to 8 years?
That's going to take a little bit more, planning. That's what I love about RAD listeners. They call in. We do a lot of planning together. We really need to figure out what your retirement goals are and how much that you're going to be receiving in your retirement. Then we're going to take what your payment is going to be. Because, something that we don't really touch on very often is a reverse mortgage. A lot of people are going into reverse mortgages, and they have a negative connotation with that. And they're like, oh, my gosh, I don't want to do a reverse mortgage. It's backed by the Federal Housing Administration. They're not stealing your equity. It is a really good move for a lot of people. But
so we should trust Tom Selleck?
I know I do.
That's funny.
We've never talked about reverse mortgages.
Yeah, we never have. But I mean, that's probably an entire show in itself. But it's a great avenue for people that are looking to retire. So what my advice would be, call me one-on-one. We'll go over an entire strategy together, and then we can plan out your retirement and your goals through your biggest investment in life, which is your mortgage.
And Tom Selleck, if you're listening, just call me.
Just for a second, since you mentioned it, do you do reverse mortgages?
I do, yeah.
So they don't, because I think a lot of people are there. I think there's two things from talking to older people in my life. Yes, there are some. there's two things go on. One, they see all these trusted actors of their age who go on TV and they don't buy it.
Yeah.
And two, they have certain financial advice. I know a few people who are well into their 60s or 70s who have been told by their financial advisors, reverse mortgage, don't do it. But they offer no context. Because I asked one person, I said, well, did they give you an explanation? They just said, don't go near it.
Yeah.
And I think some people think, well, if I do it, I've got to go through TV and it's a scam and blah, blah. But they can go through Shelby and know that they're in good hands.
Yep. Come right into my office. We'll go over it together. The program's changed a lot over the years. So, this is a loan that's backed by the Federal Housing Administration. They have to go through an actual counseling program in order to understand how it works. But the thing is, the question that I get the most about a reverse mortgage is I get the question of, well, what happens if, my equity position changes? Or when I die, what about all my equity? They don't take your equity. You actually are protected. If you live to be 120 years old, they're still going to continue to have no payment. You'll never be kicked out of your house. And your heirs will always get 5% equity no matter what. Even if you drew all of the equity out of your house, it'll always stay to where they can get 5% equity. So it is a safe loan. It's a good loan. It's not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it can really help.
And the primary candidate would be what age or older?
It's like 65. I mean, the prime candidate would be like somebody that's in their 70s that has a really good equity position. They can eliminate their mortgage payment altogether for their entire rest of their life. And they can pull out lump sums. They can pull a draw. It's good.
I obviously it's not all, but it seems like just certain ages right now, like 60s, 70s, or 80s, they're just raised a different way. They're a little more weary, and
Too
they're
good to be true.
Yeah, and they're just so conservative about it and not take chances. They hear some of the stuff other people do. What?
Did you just lump them all into a political party, Dawn?
God, right? That's exactly what people heard.
Here's another one on the monthly payment. I know you just answered it, but just because it gives people, sometimes they got to hear it over and over again. Dawn says, not our Dawn, Dawn wrote in, RAD at radradio.com. My man owes about $150,000 on his house. It's worth $425,000. I've been telling him to refinance with Shelby. He only wants one payment a month, and if he took out equity, how much more does the payment go up? He's just waiting, but the rate keeps going up.
Yeah. So there's too many variables there, because if somebody's been in their home loan for like 8 or 10 years, by you resetting that back to a 30-year, there's a lot of savings there. So you really have to call in. That's why it's so important to encourage people to call. I love that she said that. I love all the RAD listeners that tell their friends. I can't tell you how many people say, my friend that was listening to the show referred me to you. And
you count that for us, though, right? You count that for RAD. You just a friend. So a lot of people. I mean, it's been a big story for years. It's sometimes it's overblown in terms of the exodus from California, because a lot of people move into California, but a lot of people that live in California would call those people stupid.
Yes.
There are. I mean, just yesterday, a lot of Californians like you and me, Shelby, dodged a big bullet when the AB 1400 bill died.
Yes.
Which would have been, California would have become the first state to do universal health care for everyone, and they would have paid for it with crippling taxes on businesses, business owners, and people who are doing well. And it would have caused some level of, that's it, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
There's already some level of that. There are people who are planning on leaving California, looking to leave California. You touched on it last time you were here about how do you put a plan into place, whether you live in California or somewhere else, where you know you want to go.
Yeah.
And I assume they know where they want to go. How do they execute that?
So I get this call a lot as well. People are saying, hey, because I always ask people how long that they plan on staying in their home. And I'm getting a lot of answers where people say, hey, I don't know. It's going to be maybe 3 or 5 years. And I'm planning on moving out of state. And so when I'm looking at the data, I can analyze and I can see, okay, Tennessee had a 39% growth from last year, and Idaho, and a lot of these states are having massive growth going into their states. So what that means is their prices are going to continue to rise over the next 3 to 5 years. They have so many people going there, there's not enough inventory. So if you think our inventory here is short, there it's even crazier. So what I'm doing for those people is we're planning that out and saying, okay, what does it look like if you were to refinance now, lock in on today's prices. It's just an equity shift. We're going to take, $100,000 of your equity here. Your payment's going to go up by X amount. Then you're going to buy the house that you want out there now, rent it. What does the new rent look like there? Does it offset? A lot of the times, it's a complete wash. It doesn't actually cost them any more money.
So they own this home in Tennessee, for example, but they're not really paying for it every month because they've got a renter.
Correct. Yep. So we break down that analysis, and then I started to get the question a lot like, well, how do I find a good property manager? So I created an entire checklist for them to ask these questions. A lot of people were asking, how do you determine what, is a good cap rate? Or how do I know I'm making a good return on my rental property? How do I find a good one? So I created a rental calculator. So this is all stuff that I'm going to be posting on my Instagram too. So follow me on Instagram at Shelby Elias, my name. I'm going to be releasing a lot of these documents so everybody can see them and use them on their own without having to contact me.
And if you already follow me, I think Dawn as well, we're connected with Shelby, so if you're following us on Instagram, it's easy to get to. This topic is one that I think a lot of people need to pay more attention to, because there's a lot of people that know right now they're not going to live in the state that they're in 5 or even 10 years. And you use that example that I think it goes over people's head, not because of you, but because they're not paying attention. People who say, my God, I could get the exact same house in Tennessee, we'll keep using that example, for 1/3 of the price. Yeah, today.
Yeah.
But if you were looking, and Dawn can tell you this from her husband working at the zoos in Texas, if you were looking for a home in Texas 5 years ago, and you were going, I can get the exact same house for half what I can get now it's down to like 1/4.
Yeah.
Because so many people are moving into Texas, Florida, Tennessee, so many of these other states, and it increases the value.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the values in California are not plummeting because there's so much money here and people are still moving to California and the shortage.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is why I always, I get wanting to leave the state. I do. I hate the state, and the minute Rob says I'm fired or he's retiring, the next day I'm gone. We are out of here. But you have to be realistic of where you're going. Is it just for cost, or is it just something that speaks to your soul? And I'm more of like, Texas speaks to my soul, or Arizona speaks to my soul, as opposed to the cost of living. Because you talk about, when my husband was in Texas, a house she's grown up there, outskirts of Austin, the suburbs, and they bought this house. It was $350,000. I was like, beautiful. I'm like, that house would be, and this was, probably 5-6 years ago. I'm like, that house would be $800,000, $900,000 easily, maybe even $1 million, depending on where in California. That house now she could sell for about $600,000. That house. So you're all excited. And you used to find homes like that all the time there for $350,000, $300,000. Land. We would look at land, and you would just get so much. Yep. Honestly, in Central Texas anyway, not so much. I mean, it's really starting to creep up kind of to the same pricing as California, except, gas, food, all of that is still very, very cheap comparatively to California. But, we could talk for days. I know I could anyway with Texas, because they get you on the taxes, the property taxes. Yeah. So
so that's why if you know somewhere where you're going, and you think, it's always going to be that way. And that's the other problem, is people think that things stay static, the same. And if you're a homeowner right now, it's almost impossible that you don't have equity. And that's why pulling out the equity from wherever you are right now and buying that home now and locking in that price. In fact, in Dawn's example, imagine if you're thinking, I know I'm leaving where I am, but it's not for 5 years. And I know I'm going to Tennessee. Well, or Texas. Imagine buying that $350,000 house, you're renting it, and then you're finally ready to go, and it's your 5-year plan. Yep. You've never paid that mortgage because your renters have paid it for you. Now you get to make a real choice. Well, we're ready to move to Texas. Yeah. Oh God, our house is worth twice what we paid for it.
Yeah, amazing.
Do we want to cash out that? Do we want to sell it? That your constant push to make people look ahead beyond tomorrow is something that's so important, and I know it resonates with people because a lot of people have never heard it before. We got this question just now from Jake. Says, I am currently going through a refinance with Shelby's team. I have a Cal HFA loan from down payment assistance. Once I go through my refinance, Do I have to pay off that loan right away? Thanks, Shelby. Your team has been great.
Yes. If you have the down payment assistance, it has to be paid off when you refinance. So you'll have to take that into consideration.
By the way, Jose just emailed and said, can you please give the Instagram information for Shelby one more time?
It's at Shelby Elias. Just my name.
Elias.
Yep.
And again, if you follow Dawn or me, you can find. You just type. You go to the search and you just type in Shelby. You find us, and you can do it that way.